Hey gamers, I am the Bentla Gamer, and today I'm going to be talking about pacing and getting your campaign to flow in a way that is both interesting and gives the players a bit of a break from some of the monotony of certain sections of a game. First and foremost, there are three primary types of scenes, or at least three primary types of sections in a story that the player should be involved with. First and foremost, there's intrigue, the building up of anticipation, finding out who the villain is, discovering the mystery, and all that kind of stuff. Intrigue is one of those kind of. It can be splotched into other types of scenes as well, but if you focus a particular scene or particular section on the intrigue, it can really help involve the players and get them asking questions that you want them to ask. The other type, or the next type I should say, is combat. Combat is pretty obvious. It's where the players are fighting stuff. This is one of the most rewarding and most tedious parts of a game, in my opinion, because everyone loves to do awesome in combat, but sometimes combat can drag on, especially in some really slow combat styles, very, very turn-based type combat. So these, in my opinion, should be the smallest portion of any story because they make it so the players have to wait to do something in turn. They have to wait for the other players. They have to wait for rolls and everything like that. Combat is not as interesting as it would be in real life or in an anime, because in real life and in anime, combat is super duper fast and it's super instantaneous and everything like that. But when it comes to rolling dice and calculating numbers, it takes that feeling away. Also, there are certain combat scenes that don't involve dice. There are certain action scenes which are more of the players are running away from something and you have them roll a few times and then you tell them the story of what happened. These are also really good to implement, especially during certain combats that are running a little tediously, or boss fights, because they can break up the monotony of waiting for the turn. It's like, okay, so the floor starts shaking, during the final boss battle and it breaks away. You'll go tumbling into this giant pit along with the boss monster. Now, roll me, roll athletics, roll acrobatics, roll whatever you can to, stop yourself from dying from the fall. This breaks up the monotony. Everyone's rolling at once. Everyone's enjoying the moment. And it kind of took some of the monotony of combat that you were having with a very long boss battle, I'd imagine, and makes it something more interactive for everyone to do at the same time. And the last and one of my more favorite sections of a story are the interpersonal or story building sections. Now, this is also kind of like intrigue because it can be splotched here and there, but it's really important to do sections based on story building, because this is what helps the players decide what their characters are. A lot of the time, most of the time, unless it's a character that they've reused over and over and over, players have no idea who the character they're playing even is. They don't even know how they're going to act in a lot of situations. So you want to give the players the ability to build a story and to build a personality for their characters. This is especially important to do in the earlier parts of a campaign, because this will help change what options characters might pick in later parts of the story. So take time, tell the players to sit around a campfire and tell stories. If the GM or storyteller has an NPC in the game, have them start by telling a story and then ask the players questions. Having NPCs ask players questions is one of the best ways to help develop a story, and is one of the best ways to help make characters feel like they're a part of the world, that their character matters and they're not just a bowl of stats and abilities. So when you're doing pacing, there's a lot of different methods, probably too many for me to count. One of the most popular is the story combat story, the left, right, left. I don't know a better way to do it. It's where you start with a story that builds into intrigue, and then as the intrigue starts to get to its climax and the players are really confused, there's a sudden combat. It's either by surprise or they stumble upon something. Bam, they have this combat, and then it's done. And then the intrigue kind of starts resolving itself as the players discover some of the mysteries, and then you have story bits at the very end as to what did these events lead to, what's the next arc, and maybe what interacted with the players. This is really important, and this is really important to do for the beginning of a campaign, because this particular pacing makes it so you can get your characters orientated, get them to know themselves, get them to know their abilities, have them try out combat, try stuff out like that, and it also hooks them into the story, hopefully with the intrigue. That is one of the most common, but it's not more prudent towards the end of a campaign or even towards the later half of the middle of the campaign, because then the players have already got themselves orientated. They already know about themselves, hopefully, and they already should have some main objective by the middle of the story. The next type of pacing, and just a recap of the previous one, just so if you're watching this video, you don't space it out of your head. The beginning should be story that leads into intrigue, combat, resolution of intrigue, and more story. It's always good to leave some intrigue, and intrigue can be implemented during combat as well, so please keep that in mind, GMs. So, the next type of pacing there is tense. Well, first it's story, because every beginning of a chapter should have some story leading into it. And then there's tense, there's action, the players have to overcome some tedious objective. They have to go through a house without, creatures necessarily to fight. Then you can throw in combat where you want to, when you want to, but make sure you keep the players on their toes. Then, at the end of the tension, try to climax with either intrigue or combat. The intrigue way is more my favorite, because in the second chapter of a storyline, or even in the middle, this can lead to the next story arc really early. It can also be a great point to reveal the main antagonist, and it makes it so the players kind of get this sense of dread from the upcoming section, which can be a bad thing depending on how much they've been suffering for the tense section of the story. If you want to go with the combat route, this is another good option, because intrigue can be splashed at the very end when you loot the corpse, loot the room, yada yada. With this section, though, you don't want the combat to be tedious, whatever you do. Make this combat short, but make it super actiony. This is where action scenes come in handy, where you have a boss battle that's kind of taking place in a very mobile fashion. You're running through a forest, running through, a desolate village, something like that. You don't want this combat to feel tedious to the players, because they were super tense all game, and then when you have a tedious combat, the tension releases, but it kind of becomes more of just like, I just want this game session to be over. So make the combat fast, and make the scenes more interactive for the players, so that they're getting the action that the tension should lead up to. When they're done, always, 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 after any tense kind of story section, reward the players with some kind of loot, reward them with some kind of experience, reward them with some kind of super awesome story bit, a pet, I don't know. Because, with tension builds stress, and if your players are stressed when they leave your gaming session, you've done something very wrong. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you reward the players for the stress you had to put them through. The last and foremost is probably one of the better for climaxes. Now, this is the combat intrigue combat. This is for a shorter story section. This is when the players have really started to hit their groove. They've started really mastering combat. This is definitely not one of my favorites, because a large amount of combat can make things tedious, as I mentioned before, monotonous. I've said it 100 times. So what you want to do is, and this is also really good for climaxes as well, because you want the players to fight through something, start feeling powerful, punch them in the face with some intrigue or some obstacle, have the players overcome the obstacle, and then face the final boss. This is rewarding, this is high action, this is high intensity. It can be a bit stressful for the characters, and the last battle might be really long, because it's probably, a bigger boss, if not the final antagonist. So you want to try to make sure that the players are feeling the action. Be be able to throw action scenes here and there in just to break up the monotony, just when the players start rolling their heads, leaning back in their seats, or looking on their phones. Throw in an action scene. Make it so that the story is being interactive to the players, and the players have to keep getting drawn in. So that's it for this session. Ciao for now, gamers. I hope you enjoyed. Good luck with your campaigns, and please leave any messages in the comments below if you have any other tips and tricks to share with me or anyone else. Please leave this video a like if you like these type of videos, or a dislike if you dislike these type of videos. I really want to stress how important it is that you leave something. Likes and dislikes don't really matter for my statistics. I have too small of a channel to really care. What they matter to me is so I know what kind of content I need to keep making. So please, let me know if you watch one of my videos. Alright gamers, ciao for now.